Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on LinkedIn, on networking with LinkedIn. My name is Mallory Newby, and I'm one of the assistant directors and career coaches at the University Career Center. And I'll also be your moderator for today's discussion. So we want to invite you to post your questions in that Q&A column. And so we'll be incorporating those in our discussion today. And we also want to let you know that there will be a recording of this webinar on our website at louisville.edu/career, along with some of our other workshops on updating your resume, tips for online etiquette, and then an open forum discussion with some of our University Career Center staff. And so if you can't stay for the whole thing today or you missed out on our others, check those out. We'll have our website posted up here shortly. And so we've got a lot to cover today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenter for today, Karen Boston, who's going to be sharing some wonderful advice with you on networking with LinkedIn.
Thank you, Mallory, and just wanted to say hello to everyone who's joining us out there today. I do want to preface my remarks by saying that I don't consider myself in any way, shape, or form to be an expert at LinkedIn. There are lots of people out there who spend a lot more time with it than I do, but our purpose today is to give you an introduction to it, to maybe give you some ideas, some things that you might want to try out, and to get you actually involved in it or connected to LinkedIn. Here are some of the questions that we're hoping that we can address today. We're going to start off with talking about what is networking and why is it important? And then we're going to segue into talking about LinkedIn specifically and why you should be using it for your networking. Next, we'll go into creating a strong LinkedIn profile. And then we'll be talking about how you can use LinkedIn to make valuable connections. And at the end of our presentation, we'll be talking about how you can actually use LinkedIn to search for job and internship opportunities. Throughout the presentation, we're going to have little breaks in order for you to ask questions. So we encourage you to be thinking about those, and Mallory will be able to feed those to me at those times. So first of all, what is networking? So this is one of my favorite definitions of networking. Networking is about making contacts and building relationships that are going to lead you to jobs or other work-related opportunities. Now notice that it says it can lead you to jobs, but networking is not about just going out and asking someone for a job. It's about building up that relationship that would lead you to actually being in a position to get a job somewhere. So some of the opportunities that networking can create for you would be leads. So leads would be something that you would go after. It would be being able to find out about an opening at a particular employer and then pursuing that. You can also get referrals through networking. And a referral would be where you would have someone in that company or organization who would be able to put a good word in on your behalf. You can also use networking to get advice. Find out from professionals in the field what they would recommend that you do as you're starting out in your career. You can also use networking to get information about an employer, about a field, about a career path. It's a really great way for you to get the inside scoop of what might be going on at a particular employer. And then finally, networking is a really great way for you to get support as you're on your career journey. You can connect with professionals, colleagues who will be able to provide you with encouragement as you are working on your career. So now that we know what networking is, or we have a definition, let's talk a little bit about the importance of it. I would say that networking is going to be crucial to your job search. And in fact, Dennis Waitley, who's a motivational speaker, has said, if you're not networking, you're not working. So I think those are important words for us to keep in mind, and know that wherever you are at this point in your job search, it's never too early to start with the networking. So if you're a freshman, sophomore, this is a great time to begin your networking. If you are graduating, it's a good time to really turn up the heat and really get going with that. In addition to the words that Mr. Whately has here for us, we also have some statistics about the importance of networking. You can see that while many applicants actually find out about jobs on job boards like Monster or Indeed, or maybe on an employer's job site or website, 35% of job seekers actually found their job postings on social media. And 50% said that they actually heard about jobs from their friends. And then 37% said they learned about jobs from professional networks. So you can see that in addition to looking at standard job boards and websites, we really need to include social media and professional and social networks in what we do for our job search. So today I'm going to try to convince you why LinkedIn would be one of the best ways for you to start your networking. And I think, first of all, I will introduce you to their job board. You'll be able to use their job board to search for jobs by keywords and location. So if you're a student who's looking to find a career in New York or Chicago or Seattle, Washington, you'll be able to do that easily by using LinkedIn. And even if you're not quite ready to actually be looking for jobs, you just want to check out what the employment area looks like, you can set some job alerts and see what are the jobs that might be available to you in New York or Chicago. Next, you can use LinkedIn in order to build your personal brand. As part of your LinkedIn profile, you're going to be coming up with a professional picture, and then you're going to have your about statement, which is a summary of yourself. You're going to talk about your experiences and skills. So you're really going to be able to develop who you are as a professional and put that out for other professionals to see. Next, if you're using LinkedIn, it will also help you when future employers or folks in the institution that you're going to school may be looking for you on the internet. It will help your results to show up higher. If you have a LinkedIn profile, it'll show up higher in Google results. And the great thing about it is the LinkedIn profile, it's something that you're going to control. So you get to control what that employer is going to see. If you haven't taken the opportunity to Google yourself and see what pops up, I would encourage you to do that and then take action to make sure that what you're seeing is what you want your future employers to see. Next, I think one of the other advantages of LinkedIn is that it's a really great way for you to be able to keep track of the contacts that you make, the professional contacts. So as you're a student at the university, you're meeting faculty members, you have classmates that you'll want to keep in touch with. From time to time, you'll meet professionals who may come in and talk to your classes. You may be working in a lab or doing an internship where you're meeting people. And LinkedIn is a really great way to stay in touch with them, because in the future, as folks move from one job to another, it really won't matter what that person's email address is. You'll be able to keep in touch with them on LinkedIn. Next, you can use LinkedIn to research companies and their employees. And of course, in the job search, we always discuss with students the importance of doing that research first and finding where you want to work and who you want to work for, as opposed to your job search being a reactive exercise in just finding out who's employing people today. But rather, we want you to pinpoint the company or organization that you want to work for, and you can do that with LinkedIn. Next, LinkedIn will help you to stay current on industry news. And so instead of having to run to several different websites to see what's going on, you can follow groups that are in your field. You can follow employers that are in your field. And that information, as they post on LinkedIn, will show up on your news feed. So you'll be able to get all of that information in one spot. And then finally, LinkedIn is a really great opportunity to connect with people or to network. And if you're an introvert who doesn't particularly enjoy the idea of going to social events and doing a lot of handshaking and making a lot of small talk, LinkedIn can be a really great way for you to build relationships, professional relationships, and to actually get to know people in your field and make some mutual connections. So if I haven't convinced you with that information that LinkedIn is the thing to do, I have some statistics here that I wanted to share with you. So at this point in time, LinkedIn is reporting that they have 675 million members that are across the world. I think this is really important to note for those of you who are planning to maybe work internationally. LinkedIn would be a really good way to start making connections with folks who could help you in that. And as you'll see on the slide here, currently we have more than 30 million companies who are posting on LinkedIn. And on any given day, more than 20 million open jobs that are being shown there. The information that I have here, I've pulled from their website, and at the time of posting, they were reporting that people were signing up at a rate of more than 2 new members per second. So those numbers are changing rapidly, almost as rapidly as the stock market, but going in the other direction there. So we're going to take a break right now and check in with Mallory and see if we have any questions to address. Mallory?
Thanks, Karen. So I do have a question here. And it is about making connections. So how should I get started with making connections if I'm new to LinkedIn and don't have any?
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the presentation here, but I would say start with the people that you know. Think about everybody that you know and consider them a part of your network. So think about your friends, your classmates, professors, staff members at the university. Think even about your parents' friends. They might be working in organizations or industries that you could be interested in. And then also, we'll talk a bit about this in a moment, but look at some of the groups and connect with some of the groups on LinkedIn, as well as I would definitely encourage people to connect with the U of L LinkedIn site so that you can be connected to other folks from U of L.
Okay, we don't have any other questions right now. Sorry, I was just double checking. So we can go ahead and get into some more of the material and see what questions we have after that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about the who and the why of networking and using LinkedIn for that, we're going to jump into the how. And so here I've laid out a little graphic to show you the process that we're going to be talking about over the next few minutes. First of all, beginning with creating or refreshing your LinkedIn profile. So some of you may already have a LinkedIn profile and are just joining us today to get some tips on that or on how you can connect with people, and that's great. Others of you may be hearing about LinkedIn for the first time, and that's wonderful too. Wherever you're at, we will be glad to meet you there. I would encourage people after our presentation today, if you have further questions, reach out to the folks at your Career Center, and they'll be glad to help you and give you some advice on that. After we talk about the profile itself, we're going to spend a few minutes just talking about the importance of checking your settings and privacy on your LinkedIn profile. And then we'll talk about what you need to say when you create an invitation to folks to connect with you. And then after we've created that, we're going to go to my favorite part, which is using the alumni tool in order to find folks who have a connection with U of L that may be doing things that you're interested in and would like to know more about. And so that should lead us then to the point of actually being able to connect with folks on LinkedIn. So let's get started. So when you're creating your LinkedIn profile, these 11 items are headings that you should be seeing available to you to help you create your profile. So you're going to start off, if you've never created a LinkedIn profile, you're simply going to go to linkedin.com. There'll be a button at the top that says Join Now. All you have to do is press that and then click a few more times to say yes to their different statements that they have, and then you're ready to get started. Now you'll notice that these headings that we've listed here are very similar to oftentimes the ones that we recommend that you have on your resume. So if you've been working on a resume, you might want to pull that out and have that by your side as you're working on your LinkedIn profile to kind of help refresh your memory on some things. One difference, though, between your LinkedIn profile and your resume, while we generally encourage undergraduate students to aim for about a one-page resume to tell their story, on LinkedIn, you can use as much space as you need. I would encourage you to try to keep it relevant, but definitely you don't have to worry as much about any space limitations on that. So the first part is we're wanting to talk a little bit about what you see at the very beginning here, your photograph, the headline. So you'll see I'm sharing with you today a snapshot or a screenshot of my profile so that you can see what it might look like. You'll notice that I have a small picture that is my face, the little round picture. For that, I would say you want this to be a professional photograph. It doesn't necessarily have to be one taken by a professional photographer, but you do want one that shows you in a more of a business-like setting, or at least professional clothing. You want to have that on. You want to have a background that's not cluttered, that doesn't distract, and you really want the focus to be, the emphasis to be on your face, so that if people were to meet you out in public after having connected with you on LinkedIn, that they'd be able to recognize you. And then I also encourage people to use that space back behind the personal photograph, to use that to tell more of your story as well. You'll notice in my case, I've chosen to put the administration building from U of L as my picture because I'm interested in higher education, and specifically here at the University of Louisville. So think about what best would tell your story. I think if I were working in human resources or interested in that field, I might want to choose something like a picture showing a couple of people shaking hands as if they're just being introduced, or maybe someone presenting at a meeting. If I were a scientist, I would think about using maybe a picture of lab equipment in the background there, or something that portrays data that's been analyzed, something like that. So think about how you can show people what it is that you are doing and or want to be doing, and do it in that space. Now you'll notice that underneath my name, I've highlighted my title there. And actually in LinkedIn, we call this your headline. The default would be that if you're creating your profile and you've put your experience in there, it's going to take your most recent job title and put it there as your headline. I would encourage most students to go in, though, and make a change to that, which you can easily, and make that headline be more about what you want to do, what you want to be, or maybe even what problem you want to solve in the world, so that people get a very clear idea of what you're shooting for. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of people using maybe 3 or 4 phrases to describe themselves and separating them with a little vertical bar. So, for example, someone who is a PhD candidate in chemistry might want to portray themselves by mentioning PhD candidate and then chemist, and then maybe the third term, they might use something like biotech or pharma to indicate what industry they're interested in working in. Likewise, a student in communication, maybe someone with a bachelor's degree, maybe someone who's going to be graduating soon, they might want to indicate what it is they want to do in communication. So that could be something like social media content creator, and then BS in communication, May 2020, to indicate they're a new grad, and then not-for-profit sector. So that way folks looking at the profile would realize this person is a new graduate from the university, so they're bringing a lot of enthusiasm to the role. They're fresh in the skills that they've learned, and they're eager to go out and do the job, as well as what they're interested in doing and the sector in working in not-for-profits. So the important things to think about in that headline is that you want to show what your skills and expertise are, and you want to communicate the value that you bring to your employer. So in the case of the 2 examples I just gave you, with these folks having a PhD and a bachelor's in communication, so the expertise that they bring and the enthusiasm and energy from their experience at the university. And then it's always helpful to include that piece of the type of job that you want, whether it's the industry that you want to work in or the actual something closer to a job title, just to give people a good idea. And then if you have space and you're interested, some people will even put in a word or two that will convey something about them that's unique, just to be sort of a conversation starter and help your profile to stand out. In much of the literature that I've been reviewing, though, I will tell you that they do say to watch out and try not to use some of the cliches, like describing yourself as a marketing guru or a data analyst, ninja, for example. We want to be authentic in describing ourselves, and certainly, use phrases that convey our expertise and skills and also entice people at the same time. So I would ask you just to be kind of mindful about how you do that. And also to try to avoid using some of the words that are used over and over again, like creative and strategic and responsible, and try to find other words that you can use to describe yourself. So just above that area, you'll notice there's a part that says Add Profile Section, and I've highlighted that. So wanted to share with you a little bit about that. At that point, what you're able to do is to click on it and just see how you're doing on filling out the different sections in the profile. And we'll be going through each of those during our conversation today. But this is also a good place under this, you'll see a section called Featured. And that's where you can put, if you have like media that you want to put on your LinkedIn profile, photos, videos, presentations, all of that can go under the Featured area. You might even want to upload a resume there to that part. Next, we have the part that says In It Too, and this is where you'll indicate your job preferences. So you're letting people out there know, whether it's a recruiter or folks who work for a company, you're letting them know what type of job you're interested in, where you're searching for a job, that sort of thing. And then next to that, we have the More. And on the More, this is where you can share your profile via messaging. So if you've connected with someone and you want them to take a look at it, or you've met someone at a conference and you want them to have more information, you can share your profile with them. You can also use that to save it as a PDF. And there's a function there where you can use the information from your LinkedIn profile to actually build a resume. You'll notice the little pencil that I've highlighted there, and that just lets you know that that is a clickable area where you can click on and make any edits that you need to your profile. And then up at the top here, there's also an area where you can go in and edit your public profile. And I think very importantly, the URL that gets created when you create your LinkedIn profile. Generally, it's going to be the one that you're given when you create the profile is a combination of your name and kind of odd letters and numbers. But I would encourage you to go in and you can change that to one that's more tailored to you, maybe that just has your name if you have a more unique name, so that it makes it a little bit easier if you want to share that, and you will want to share that URL with people throughout your job search. You'll notice on my profile, I have University of Louisville here twice. That is not a typo. Those two areas just indicate, one, where you're employed, and secondly, where you most recently went to school. And in my case, it just happens to be U of L for both. Underneath the headline, you'll see that there is a designation of a city and a state. Since I'm here in Louisville and looking to stay in Louisville, I've got mine set to Louisville, but if you are looking to work in another area, you would certainly want to go in and change that. You can also see how many people I have as connections here, and then contact information will show people how you like to be contacted. So if you are open to putting your email address on there and letting people contact you via email, you can certainly do that. You can also use that to check on the folks that you would like to contact with to see if you can connect with them that way. Next, we have the About section. This used to be called our summary, but now we're using the term About. And this is where you want to really spend some time thinking about what you've done, but also what you want to be doing and how you want to convey that information to potential employers. So you want to describe things like what motivates you, what you're skilled at, and what makes you unique. I would say in this part, it's also, I think it's beneficial to think about some of the keywords that you want to use based on what you see being used in your industry or in positions that you're interested in. And also, if there are specific skill sets that you have, you might want to mention those in the about as well. You'll notice that there's a limit to the number of characters that you can use, or at least the number that will be visible. And sometimes folks will have quite a bit on here, and so it'll say, you know, see more, or click for more. Just keep in mind that most people who are reading the profiles are not going to take the time to actually click and read that. So that means you want to put the most important information at the beginning of your About section to make sure that they've had a chance to read that before they scroll on down. Okay, so next we're going to move down to what will usually be the next section for most folks on their profile, and that would be the experience. And I just want to point out that it does say experience. It does not say work experience. So keep that in mind. I know in talking about resumes, I always stress with students that experience is experience. Sometimes we do things that we didn't get paid for, but we learned a lot from it. We contributed to the project, and so that is certainly a valid experience. We used our skills, so keep that in mind. You'll see that I have here a couple of my work experiences, and we usually do this the same way you would on a resume, which would be in reverse chronological order. One of the big advantages I find to using LinkedIn is being able to look at other professionals in the field, and using the experience section in particular, I can see what their career path has been. So what job did they start out in, and then where did they progress to? What are they doing in each of those jobs? I would mention too that most of the time I was very brief in what I put on mine here, but you'll probably want to use a few more points to describe your experiences. And I would say, again, just like we do with the resume, you want to keep it relevant. Also, you want to think about using bullet points to describe your experiences, and what we call the SOAR method, where S stands for statement of action, usually a verb. The O stands for occurrence of action, or how often did you do something. A is the amount of action, or how much or how many, and then R would be the result of the action or the outcome. So by using your bullet points and the SOAR method, you're going to keep that pretty lively. You're going to keep it concise, but at the same time, employers and others looking at profile will have a good sense of what it was that you did. And notice that last one, the result. So what was the outcome? Not just what did you do, but what resulted from it. You'll notice here that I have just a couple of experiences listed on my profile. When we're talking about resumes, generally we limit it to just like the last 10 years. I would say use your own guidance on that as far as what you think is necessary. I opted to cut mine off because I had a career prior to being in higher ed that really wasn't as relevant to what I'm doing here, and so I just didn't put that on there. Just like your resume, you get to control what you put on here. Then the next section is for education. And again, we put this in reverse chronological order. You'll note, though, in this case, I chose not to put my graduation dates on there, but you can if you would like to. Within each of these education sections, you can also put some links or put in information about external documents, things like photos, videos. If you have done presentations as part of your degree program, you can certainly add those here as well. All right, moving on. The next section that we're going to talk about would be the licenses and certifications. I would encourage you to make sure that these are current. I work with a lot of students who have had the basic first aid or life support, things like that. Just make sure that when you put that on there, it's up to date, because an expired license looks like maybe either you haven't been checking your profile, or you kind of, let that lapse and haven't attended to it. So make sure things are up to date. In addition to having things on here like the date it was issued and when it expires, there's also an opportunity, if you go in and edit, you can actually put things like license numbers. I have a lot of nursing students and dentists who will have those pieces of information, but generally I would not encourage you to put that on there, because remember, this is the internet that we're on here, so I would probably keep that to myself. When you go in to put your information on there by clicking the plus sign, usually you'll be able to find the body that gave you the license or the certification that you earned it from. Their little logo will automatically populate that there for you when you find them in the drop-down box. So you don't have to worry about finding that yourself. It should be in there for you. Then the next section deals with our skills and endorsements. And this one is one that's been evolving over the time that I've been using LinkedIn. And I really like this new direction that they're going in here. They now have a little skill quiz that they're trying out. So I would encourage students to take a look at that. In browsing through there, you can be tested on skills, things like Microsoft, the various aspects of Microsoft, including things like PowerPoint. MATLAB is one, Python, R, so various types of things. There's some programming languages in there as well that you can be tested on, and then get yourself a badge that you would be able to put here. So that's a pretty cool aspect that they're testing right now. The major thing about the skills and endorsement would be that you can actually put some on there for yourself, or you can have some of your colleagues who can endorse you for some skills. And you'll notice that I have some that are showing up here. They usually will give you the name of the person who's endorsed you for that particular skill. And then one of the newest features with this is that they've now set it up where you can go into your profile yourself and rearrange of the skills that you have shown there. You can rearrange those to feature your top 3. So if you feel like you're going to be applying to positions that require certain skills, you would definitely want to make sure that those are highlighted there. All right, so the next part has to deal with recommendations. And so you can see that there is an opportunity for you to ask for a recommendation. You'll notice I haven't done that myself. And one of the reasons why is that I think that when you ask for recommendations, you need to be prepared to give them for other people too. And that's just been a time factor for me. But this is definitely, I think, a good option. As students or new graduates, you would want to think about asking maybe faculty members if they would be willing to do this. If you're a researcher or working with a researcher, your PI, if you're working in a job, supervisors, just consider being very strategic about who you ask to do a recommendation for you, and be considerate in that ask as well. And then finally, the last section that we're going to take a look at here would be your interests. And this is simply a reflection of the various groups that you are following or are a part of on LinkedIn. You'll see in my case, I have several of the employers here in the Louisville area that I follow in order to stay in touch with what they have going on, and then also some things related to higher education. And if you were to click on my See All, you would see even more things related to career coaching, as well as higher ed and other employers. So this, I think, is a really good way to convey to people what you're interested in, as well as providing a way for you to get information from these organizations on your news feed on a regular basis. So I think I'll take a moment right here to ask Mallory if we have any other questions about the profile before we talk about settings and privacy.
Yes. So first question is related to the summary. So which is better, a list or paragraph for the About section? And should my summary be the same as maybe the objective or piece on my resume? So how should I format that on LinkedIn, and should that also maybe be on my resume?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say I'm going to take the second half first. I would say yes, it could look very much like what you have on your resume, but keep in mind with the resume, we're going to tailor that for every position that you're applying to, every different employer, versus LinkedIn is going to be your generic version that everyone's going to have access to. So you're going to have to think about what things you're really wanting to emphasize there. In terms of the format of it, for that, I think I kind of like the paragraph. There's not going to be a lot of space there, but to me, the paragraph there, everything else is going to be a lot of bullets. I think the paragraph gives you a chance to show a little bit more of your personality. And I think that comes across more in sentences than it would in bullet points there. But that's just my thought.
Yeah, and something on the experience section. So should I use the same bullet points in my experience that are on my resume?
Most likely they will be the same. Again, the resume will be tailored to each position, so you might tweak that a little bit, but you're going to think about what are the things that would be applicable to any position or any employer that you're applying to, and probably have those on the LinkedIn for folks to see. And then if you have room, you can have those that are more specific to specific opportunities.
Definitely. So now this question is from a student who wants to know, can I list courses that I've taken from sites such as opencourseware.com or edx.com? So just some of those additional, learning opportunities. Should that be on my profile?
Yes, I think so. I think one, it will allow you to access some skills that maybe you couldn't have gotten through a curriculum or didn't get through curriculum for whatever reason. But also, I think it shows initiative on your part to do that. So absolutely, I would recommend that.
And finally, do employers look at the number of connections that you have?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that that is something that I take a look at, but from my standpoint, I'm realizing that a student who's just created a LinkedIn profile is probably not going to have too many yet, and that's okay. Some people want to take their time and be very careful and strategic about who they have as part of their connections, and other people, may take a more a faster approach to that. But honestly, I can't speak for the employers on that. I may have to run that past our employer engagement team and get their take on it.
Yeah, I think one thing that I know, if you don't have a lot of connections, you shouldn't connect with just everybody and anybody, but it does show how much you use the site depending on how many connections you have. So it's a good question, but I do think it's important to build your network and to be strategic and quality over quantity, but it is a good note to see how active you are on there. So that's all the
Thanks, Mallory.
questions I have right now on that particular topic.
Great, thanks for adding that point. All right, so next we're going to talk about the settings and privacy. So here we're taking a look at my feed here, and up at the top you can see that I have highlighted this little thumbnail photo of me, because that's where we're going to go to click on that little down arrow that's underneath it in order to see the settings and privacy. So here we go. So you'll notice that you have several different options here on the left-hand side, and actually the far left side of this slide. You'll see how others can see your profile and network information. So this is probably one of the most important ones for you to take some time to look at. Here's an area where you can edit your public profile in terms of how much you want people to be able to see and which people you want to have available to see information. You'll note on the right-hand side, I pulled out a quote about the viewability based on just having a photograph. And I will say from my personal experience, that is something that I consciously or unconsciously kind of factor in when I'm looking at a profile. If the person doesn't have a photograph, I'm going to think either A, they're not active on LinkedIn, as she just mentioned, with the lack of connections, or B, maybe they're not interested in really participating on LinkedIn. So generally, if I see someone that doesn't have a photograph, I'm probably not going to put them on the top of my list of people to try to contact. I'm going to move down to the folks that do have the photograph. You'll also see that there are, on this part on the left about the profile, you can determine who can see your email address. We mentioned that before. The various parts of your profile that people can see, who can see your last name, because you can keep that hidden if you want to. And then also towards the bottom here, you can choose how your information on LinkedIn is viewable in other services. So encourage everyone to take the time to look through that and make sure that the settings are what you want them to be. And one of the sources that I've been consulting with had indicated that if you really want to increase your connections, you want to make sure that you select the full profile on the viewing options. And that makes sense because as you're going out and you are asking to connect with people, probably the first thing they're going to do when they see your request is to take a look at your profile so that they can really get a sense for themselves. Why would this person be connecting with me and how could that be beneficial to us? So make sure that you do select the full profile if you'd like to be doing that. Next, we're going to be taking a peek here at how others see your LinkedIn activity. And so here you can actually determine whether or not people can see your profile if you're browsing and looking at other people's profiles, whether they would be able to see that. Again, if you're looking to connect with people, I would say you would want to keep that open so that they can view you back. You don't want to be keeping any secrets from them if you're trying to connect with them. And notice that you can also determine how people can see things like your job changes, your education, all of those things that could pop up on the profile or they could get notifications of. And to that note, if you have already started a LinkedIn profile, before you jump in and start making changes to it, make sure that you turn that particular item off, the sharing the job changes, until you get done freshening up your profile, because you don't want your connections to be getting 2 or 3 pings that you've changed your job, you've changed your education, when you're not really ready for people to be looking at that. So just make sure that you go in and make that notation. Now, the next one, I skipped over the one about how LinkedIn uses your data just for sake of time here today, but I would encourage you to make sure that you check that out on your own. And then very importantly, you can also determine your preferences in terms of job seeking to let recruiters know what kind of opportunities you're open to, for example, what locations, and also can determine how much of your information gets stored. And now I want to spend some time talking a little bit about that very important invitation that you're going to create to connect. So first of all, while there'll be opportunities for you to hit a little connect button to send a request to someone, I would encourage you to not do that. Always, always, always tailor an invitation to the person that you're wanting to connect with. Now, you will have one challenge in that you do have to keep it brief. There's a limit of 300 characters, but definitely tailor it to the person that you're wanting to connect with and include something about who you are, what you have in common with this person, and why you want to connect. So I have to the right, I have an example for you of someone who is wanting to connect with an alum from the university who works as an actuary. So by indicating I'm a senior in math and I'm looking to connect with professionals to learn more about the careers in actuarial science, I noticed that you earned your degree at U of L and would like to connect with you. And then given my name and class of 2020, just so that they have an idea of where I am educationally. So keeping it pretty simple and direct. And so we're going to keep moving forward here. All right, so I've had a message from Mallory that she's temporarily lost connection on the call. So we're going to ask everyone to hold their questions until the next little break that will be coming up. And if you want to ask questions about the invitation, we'll be coming back to that. All right, so this is my favorite part of talking about LinkedIn because I enjoy doing some detective work. And so I enjoy using this tool. So first of all, you're going to go once again right back to logging in to your LinkedIn profile and then using that search bar up at the top. And you're going to simply in that search box, you're going to put in University of Louisville. And when you do that, you'll see several options, but the one that I would encourage you to pick is the one that says University of Louisville and has the Cardinal logo attached to it. And it will bring you to the university's LinkedIn page here. And so one of the great things you can see right off the bat that there are a number of people who are on LinkedIn who have some affiliation with U of L. So you've got something in common with them right off the bat. You can also see that I'm currently following U of L. So as they post things on their LinkedIn feed, it's also going to come into mine. Now, once you get onto this area, the first thing that you'll want to do is just scroll down and click on the alumni so that it'll take you to the alumni tool. And now you have an option to start looking for alumni using different parameters. So in this case, you can look and see where they live. So if you have an interest in Chicago and you want to connect with people in Chicago, you can use that as one of your search parameters. Or if there's a particular employer that you're interested in connecting with folks at, you could use that. Or you can also use this little next button right here, and that will take you to what they do and also what they studied. So if you are interested in business development and want to connect with people there, you're easily able to do that. Or in the case of looking for people by major, you're able to do that under the what they studied. Now, the great thing about this is that if you don't find your major in those that are listed here, you can just go to the little plus and add and put your major in, and you'll be able to find people with that major. There's also this great search box right here where you can look for alums by their title. So if you're wanting to look for people, for example, that might be president or CEO of companies, you could plug that in, other keywords or specific companies. And so I have a screenshot for you showing this where I actually put in under the what they studied, I put in public health. And this was the result that I got, 514 alums that have some connection. Most of them are alums, some are currently students with the University of Louisville that have popped up here. And now it's breaking it down even further by what they do. So I can see that many of them are involved in healthcare services, many in education, others in community and social services. And in addition to that, we're able to scroll down from this particular screen and actually look at their thumbnails. So these would be the results of the search that I did. And for their privacy, I have covered the names and faces of the folks here, but you can see their titles. You can see when they graduated from that particular degree or program. You'll also notice here, many of them have something next to their name. This indicates a first degree connection. So this is a person with whom I have already made contact and we have connected with one another on LinkedIn. So if I wanted to contact that person from this page, I could just hit the message and it would take me directly to that and I could communicate with them. The next one, you'll notice this one is a second degree. So that means this person is connected to one of my connections, but I'm not yet connected with them. So I could hit the connect button and send an invitation to them. However, I would encourage you not to do that. But again, as we discussed in the previous screen, go back and make sure that you click on their profile and send them a personalized invitation so that they know more about who you are and why you'd like to connect with them. Okay, So the question came up earlier about the number of connections that you should have. And so you'll notice here I've highlighted one of the results in my search who has over 500 connections. So that person obviously is very well connected, would be a very, very good resource for you. Generally, as you're looking to connect with people, at least my general rule is I try to connect with people who have at least 100 connections, unless it's someone that I can tell is just starting to build their profile, and I may go ahead and connect with them. But if I'm looking for someone that I think is going to be able to provide some advice to me, I'm probably going to look for someone with more connections than that. Again, as we said before, it'll show their most recent employer and most recent educational institution. And then you'll see that over on the right, you'll get some people that were also viewed that were similar to this person, perhaps. And while these folks probably don't have anything to do with University of Louisville, there may be other things about them that are similar to the folks that we looked at before. So you may want to keep them in mind in terms of folks that you might want to reach out to. Okay, so now that you've learned how to go through those steps of finding those people, learning about the difference in degree connections, what do you do with this? So you've made your message to them, they have offered to connect with you. First of all, I would say just remember that you're trying to establish a professional relationship. So be considerate of their time. Don't bombard them with multiple messages. Think about what you want to say and be brief in what you say. It may take some time for them to reply back to you, so be patient about that. But always keep in mind you want to be polite, professional, and appreciative for them giving their time and expertise to you. As you're making connections with people, you may want to do a little informational interviewing with them, and I'm providing some questions here that you may want to use in that, asking them how did they get started. Now you may have an idea based on their LinkedIn profile how they got started, but you may want to ask some specific questions about that. You may want to ask about challenges in the work that they're doing currently. You may want to ask what are their thoughts. Always asking opinion questions I think is a good option to learn more about what people think about what they're doing. Certainly, anytime you're connecting with professionals, one of the last questions in your conversation can be, which other people would you recommend that I connect with? Or are there other groups that I should be a part of? And then certainly don't forget to ask how they can help you. Sometimes we may feel that we're not on the same level, perhaps, that someone's more experienced and we're not sure what we can provide for them. But it's always a courtesy to ask, and you may be surprised that they may have something, whether it be wanting to have opinion from college students about a product that they're launching, or any number of things that you might be able to help them with. Maybe they need referrals. They want students to serve as interns, and you might have some friends that could do that for them. So definitely make sure that you ask that question. All right, so speaking of questions, we've come to the point, and I think Mallory is back with us. So let's see what questions we might have.
I am back. So sorry about that. We do have some questions. So what should I do if I don't hear back from the person I sent a connection request to? Oh, and it looks like the student said, never mind that you answered that.
All right, great.
Happens when you're out of the loop for a few minutes. Next question, how can I spot fraudulent companies in my job search on LinkedIn?
You know, I think anytime you're wanting to test that out, I think triangulation is the thing. So, you know, you're going to look at their posting, but you're also going to look at their website. If it's a company, you're going to look at things like the Better Business Bureau. You're going to look at Glassdoor and see what people are saying about it. So definitely doing your research in every different area that you can think of. And then looking at some of the individuals that are maybe connected with the company, doing some research on them to make sure that they are actually who they say they are. So yeah, definitely doing a lot of research.
And I'm just kind of sorting through the Q&A column, and it looks like we might have slowed down on questions as people thought that no one was monitoring that. We did have a question, though. I did see something about hashtags. And can you touch on that? I mean, that's not something you really want to put on your profile, but in postings, should you use hashtags?
Yes, we could probably do a whole nother workshop on, how you do postings on different social media things. And by the way, anyone listening today, if you have ideas, we would love to know more about what you would like to hear and see from us. But yes, in terms of the postings, things that you might be forwarding from other people that are on your timeline, or things that you're creating, yes, anytime you use hashtags, that's going to help the visibility, and kind of create a trail that people that are wanting to follow that particular thought can do that. So yes, it would definitely be a thing that I would encourage you to do.
And there's another one here on recommendations. How long should those be? And, what's the typical length for that? What should you include if you're writing a recommendation for someone?
Yeah, so I think it's somewhat similar to asking for a letter of recommendation. Things like you want to think carefully about who you're asking, why you're asking them, what you want out of this. But I think on LinkedIn, I think you want to keep it concise to maybe like one paragraph. And I would say, as in any time you're asking someone for a recommendation, you want to help that person do the best job possible. So give some pointers to them of specifically what are you looking for them to touch on. Do you want them to talk about a certain skill that you used when you were employed with them, or a certain characteristic that they saw in you that was employed in some way? So definitely, I would say keep it to one paragraph and try to have it be about something specific, not just a great person, good sense of humor kind of thing. We want it to be more specific so that it's obvious to people that there was a depth to that relationship. And again, on the recommendations, there again, I think you want to see if you can reciprocate for that person. And if it's someone that you feel like is a higher level, maybe you would reciprocate in some other way, offer to help them in some way. But definitely if it's a peer, you want to be able to reciprocate with them.
Next question. Should I look at LinkedIn as a virtual resume, or could I be a bit more loose with my personality, similar to Facebook?
I would definitely keep the LinkedIn on the professional side, and less so the Instagram, Facebook side. You can use some words to describe yourself that show that you're unique, and maybe a little bit about your interest, but I would say keep it on the professional side, probably 85–90% professional.
Definitely, because and like you've talked about and focused on, it's a relationship management tool. So you want to make sure that your professional image is being reflected on there, but you can insert some of your personality. So I think that's great advice. Let me make sure. I don't think we have any additional questions from our attendees.
Okay. Good, because we have one more section really quick that we're going to cover about the searching for job opportunities. And so there are a couple of ways to do that. One way is just jumping in at the top of your LinkedIn profile there in the search, and then clicking on the jobs as I have highlighted here. And then that will take you to the next screen, and you'll see at the top you can put in companies, titles, skills, cities, states that you want to look for. And then you will end up getting results like this. So in this example, I put in dentist and then Miami, Florida. And you'll notice that at the top, we also have some filters here that can be employed. So you can sort it by different ways. You can look for things that are posted more recently if you'd like. LinkedIn features, you can look for, this would include things like employers that have had fewer than 10 people apply for the job, things like that. Very important, I think, for a lot of our new graduates is the experience level. So if you want to find employers that are specifically looking for folks that are just graduating, that are entry level, you can do that from that particular filter. So that is one way. And then the other way, which is I think just one step quicker, going into LinkedIn and then using under the little briefcase here, the jobs, and then putting in your parameters, the title or keyword that you want to search for and the location. And you'll notice that when we get to that, we end up with pretty much the same information, same options that come up here. One of the greatest things that I like about using LinkedIn for search for these jobs is that then you get to see if there are some connections that are within not just your group, but also within the larger group of U of L alums. So if you were wanting to apply for a position like this, you would definitely want to connect with that individual and find out more about what their experience has been, as well as if they're still working there, hopefully, have an opportunity to have them put in a good word for you. So very quick way just to see how those job functions work. Again, feel free to talk to your Career Center staff about how you might use LinkedIn in order to search for jobs, build your profile, and network with professionals. And I'm going to give Mallory a chance to rein in any last questions, but while she's doing that, I wanted to show you, I do have some resources here from LinkedIn. So those of you who are listening, if you'd like to go back later and capture these from the link that we have on our website, certainly feel free to do that. And then some additional resources that are just about LinkedIn. So Mallory, I'm going to send it back to you.
Okay, it looks like those are all the questions that we had, and we covered a lot of information and had good questions along the way. So definitely reach out to your Career Center if you have any specific questions. And also just want to remind you of our upcoming webinar for next week, which is May 5th at 1 p.m. and that will be on learning more about the career competencies and how you can use those to market yourself to employers. And so that is all we have for you today. Thank you so very much for joining us and bearing with me as I lost connection. But we look forward to hearing your thoughts and your feedback, and everyone have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.